Hello and welcome to this edition of World at War. My name is Mohammed Saleh. The Russia-Ukraine war is not coming to an end. If anything, as this past week has shown, the conflict is expected to intensify. On Thursday night, Russia staged its biggest aerial attack on Ukraine since the beginning of its invasion, with 728 drones and 13 ballistic missiles. And then again on Friday, Russia fired another 550 deadly drones and 26 long-range ballistic missiles. The Russian strategy is simple: wear down the Ukrainian defenses as the American appetite for war under Donald Trump seems to have waned. But Donald Trump too is waking up to the harsh reality of geopolitics. He cannot be the president of peace if for decades the United States has pushed a deliberate policy for NATO military alliance to expand its frontiers eastwards. To abandon Ukraine and to cede to all the demands as dictated by Vladimir Putin would be tantamount to surrender. But to rely on his ability to negotiate with repeated phone calls to Vladimir Putin has clear limitations. For the first time since taking charge, Donald Trump appears to have lost his temper with Putin. Speaking to the reporters at the White House, the American president said, and I quote, "We get a lot of bullshit thrown at us by Putin. If you want to know the truth, he's very nice all the time, but it turns out to be meaningless." Now, what is clear is that talk is cheap. Words alone are not going to bring about any ceasefire in Ukraine. What Donald Trump will have to do is to halt the Russian war machine. But the question is, can he? Our next report gets you more details. Night after night, the Russian drones keep coming in wave after wave, in attacks that are designed to test and overwhelm the Ukrainian air defense capabilities. And this week, Russia staged the biggest aerial attack on Ukraine since the beginning of the invasion. Besides the Ukrainian capital Kiev, the far western city of Lutsk near the Polish border bore the brunt of the attack in the wee hours of the morning on the 10th of July. A total of 728 drones were fired, besides 13 Kinzhal and Iskander missiles, resulting in the deaths of 2 people and injuries to 28 others. The Ukrainians have been spending their nights in reinforced bomb shelters, in underground metro stations, and when nothing else is available, in underground basements, with the hope that they would stay safe. In the wee hours of the morning on the 12th of July, the western city of Lviv was specifically targeted. A total of 46 residential homes, a university building, the city's courts, and another 20 business establishments were seriously damaged and burned from the impact of the drones and missiles. On the 11th of July, a maternity hospital was damaged in the city of Kharkiv. The impact from the Russian projectile was such that the windows shattered, glass shards fell in the bed, and the families were forced to scamper to the basement shelter with their babies.
We woke up and heard a very loud whistle. My husband and I got up and rushed to our little one, and at that moment there was a hit and the windows shattered. Thank God we are alive and unharmed. We grabbed our son and ran to the basement. It was very scary because I was so full of adrenaline, probably forgot that I had stitches. Now I am slowly recovering from the shock.
In the southern coastal city of Odessa, a stable was bombed by a drone. 9 people suffered serious injuries, while a white horse, which was a star attraction amongst children in the area, got killed. Yulia Vasyakina, who arrived from the bomb shelter in the morning to look at what had happened to her stable, was inconsolable.
I invested my whole life in this. We sheltered old horses. Some came from meat processing plants, some from sports, some from bad owners. This wasn't a business. This was my whole life. We built this from scratch when we didn't have any money. My husband built it with his own hands. Once there was only trash here, nothing else.
While the common people suffer, the war continues to grind on. In the latest drone footage released by the Russian Defense Ministry, the Russians showed off the level of destruction wreaked by the Russian forces on the village of Zelina Dolina in Ukraine's eastern Donetsk region. The Russian soldiers also unfurled the Russian flag to show that this is the latest settlement that had been wrested out of the Ukrainian hands. Serhiy Kuzan, the chairman of the Ukrainian Security and Cooperation Center, was candid in his admission. The Ukrainians have air defense interceptors that can last until fall, but not after that. And unless the American and European allies up their production and shipments, the Ukrainians would not be able to defend their skies after fall.
До осені ми розуміємо, що принаймні ми маємо.
By fall, we understand that we have reserves. The military always by default first accumulates reserves and then gradually uses them. And therefore today it is impossible to completely abandon neither the American anti-missile system, especially the Patriot Pact-3 and other Patriots, nor American intelligence.
Пакт-3 та й до інших патріотів, ані від американської розвідувальної інформації.
The United States has again resumed the supply of critical weapons to Ukraine after halting them briefly. The reality of this war is beginning to slowly dawn on the American president. No one ever negotiates when they see that they are winning on the battlefield.
We're not happy with Putin. I'm not happy with Putin. I can tell you that much right now, because he's killing a lot of people. And a lot of them are his soldiers and their soldiers, mostly. And it's now up to 7,000 a week. And I'm not happy with Putin. We get a lot of bullshit thrown at us by Putin, for you want to know the truth. He's very nice all the time, but it turns out to be meaningless.
The art of the deal is not going to end the war. For Putin to stop, the Russian war machine needs to be halted, and for that to happen, Donald Trump and his European allies will have to assist Ukraine in ways they haven't done since the beginning of the Russian invasion. In Pakistan's restive southwestern Balochistan province, gunmen abducted and killed 9 people after stopping 2 passenger buses on a highway on Thursday evening. As the buses travelled from the provincial capital of Quetta to the central region of Punjab, the dastardly attacks occurred in the Zohab and the Loralai districts of the Balochistan province. Following the attackers fled the scene and a search is underway to track down the assailants. Though no group immediately claimed responsibility for the abduction and the killings of the bus passengers, Balochistan has been the scene of a long-running insurgency in southwestern Pakistan with an array of separatist groups, including the Baloch Liberation Army, demanding independence from Pakistan's central government in Islamabad. Our next report gets you more details.
Balochistan is Pakistan's largest province by territory, but the smallest in terms of population. Despite being blessed with mineral resources and vast reserves of natural gas, the province has remained the country's poorest, giving rise to a broader rebellion. The decades-old rebel movement blames the Pakistani government of neglecting its residents and unfair distribution of resources. Most prominent of these rebel groups in the southwestern Balochistan province is the Baloch Liberation Army. The separatist group has staged attacks mainly targeting security forces and sometimes people from the eastern Punjab province who travel to Balochistan for business or employment. Thursday evening attack also appeared to target passengers from Punjab specifically. Reportedly, unidentified armed men had set up a blockade, checked identity cards and executed the passengers. According to government sources, the bodies of the victims, riddled with bullet wounds, were found in the mountains overnight. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, while strongly condemning the killings, vowed to avenge the blood of the innocent civilians. But it would be easier said than done, as the Baloch separatist groups, in a major escalation, have upped the ante from traditional guerrilla warfare to more organized territorial assaults. On July 8th, the Baloch Liberation Front announced the launch of Operation Baam, or Operation Dawn, which according to the Baloch Liberation Front marks a new dawn in the Baloch National Liberation War. Since the launch of Operation Baam, reportedly around 70 attacks have been carried out across Balochistan and other provinces in Pakistan, marking the Baloch Liberation Front's most extensive attacks in recent years. Noteworthy is the fact that Pakistan has witnessed an escalation in violence, especially in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Balochistan. In the wake of Afghan Taliban seizing power in Afghanistan in August 2021, the Pakistani security forces have found the going tough in battling the deadly decades-long insurgency by Baloch separatists. With the insurgency entering a critical phase, Balochistan remains one of the biggest pressure points for Islamabad. At this critical juncture, the government's seeming failure to protect its interests and ensure public safety does not inspire much confidence.
Yemen's Iran-aligned Houthis have proven to be a thorn in the flesh for the United States and its ally Israel. Between November 2023 and January 2025, the Houthis, who are officially known as the Ansar Allah, launched more than 100 attacks with missiles, drones and small boats, targeting commercial vessels and military ships with ties to the State of Israel and its allies in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. In this period, 2 vessels were sunk, a third was seized, and at least about 4 seafarers were killed, compelling the shipping companies into a costly detour around southern Africa. The persistent attacks have been described by the group's leadership as an act of solidarity with the Palestinians intended to end the Israeli war on the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. After months of relative calm since the beginning of this year, the Houthis have renewed their campaign, targeting 2 cargo ships in just the span of the last week. Our next report gets you more details.
The Red Sea is a critical waterway for oil and commodities, which witnessed a sharp drop in traffic since Houthi attacks off Yemen's coast began in November 2023. In recent weeks, however, the waterway, which typically witnesses $1 trillion worth of goods move through it annually, had begun to see more traffic. In May, the United States announced a deal to stop bombing the Houthis in return for an end to shipping attacks, though the Houthis said the deal did not include sparing Israel. On the 7th of July, the Houthi rebels claimed responsibility for their first attack this year. On commercial shipping on the vital maritime route. In their first strike in months, the Iran-backed rebels said they hit the Greek-owned Liberian-flagged Magic Seas with missiles, drones and uncrewed boats because it had previously docked in Israel.
The Navy forces, the missile force and the drone air force of the Yemeni armed forces have targeted the vessel Magic Seas, which belongs to a company that violated the ban on entry to the ports of occupied Palestine. The attack was carried out using 2 unmanned boats, 5 ballistic and cruise missiles, and 3 drones. The operation resulted in the following. The ship was directly hit, causing water to leak inside, and it is now at risk of sinking. Our forces allowed the crew to evacuate the vessel safely.
سماح قواتنا للطاقم بمغادرة السفينة بسلام.
The same day, the United Arab Emirates said that it had successfully rescued all 22 people aboard the Magic Seas after an AD Ports Group vessel, Safine Prism, responded to a distress call from the commercial ship following the attack by Yemen's Iran-aligned Houthis in the Red Sea. The Houthi attack, however, which ended half a year of calm in the Red Sea corridor, was merely the beginning of a renewed campaign in the key waterway. Less than 24 hours later, Eternity Sea, a Greek-operated Liberian-flagged bulk carrier en route Berbera, Somalia, was badly damaged in attack claimed by Houthis that started on Monday and continued into Tuesday. Reportedly, the Eternity Sea was first attacked on Monday afternoon with sea drones and rocket-propelled grenades fired from speedboats. The vessel was hit again with sea drones on Tuesday, forcing the crew and armed guards to abandon it for the sea. But 4 of the 25 people aboard the Eternity Sea cargo ship were killed before the rest of the crew abandoned the vessel, which sank on Wednesday morning. Reportedly, 10 crew members have been rescued while the remaining 11 are missing or might have been kidnapped. On Thursday, the Houthi leader Abdul Malik al-Houthi vowed that no company would be permitted to transport goods related to Israel through designated areas at sea.
It is not permissible for any company to transport goods for the Israeli enemy through the declared area of operations. Our position in this regard is firm. What happened is a clear lesson to all maritime transport companies operating to serve the Israeli enemy that they will be dealt with at this level of firmness. Our Yemeni position is firm and decisive, and our decision to prevent navigation for the Israeli enemy in the Red Sea, Gulf of Aden and Arabian Sea is permanent as long as the Israeli enemy continues the aggression and siege on Gaza.
It is to be noted that the insurance cost of shipping goods through the Red Sea has more than doubled in recent days after Houthis attacked and sank 2 ships. Israel has responded to these Houthi attacks by carrying out several strikes on Yemen, which have resulted in retaliatory missile launches by Houthis towards Israel. The Houthis have continued to be defiant, declaring that ships owned by companies with ties to Israel are a legitimate target. Given Houthis' defiance and renewed belligerence, it will be interesting to see the response of Israel's principal ally, the United States, which is locked in a fragile ceasefire with the Houthis since 6th of May.
At least 31 people were killed and 107 others were wounded in anti-government protests across Kenya on the 7th of July. In addition to this, at least about 532 people were arrested following clashes between protesters and the police, according to the Kenyan National Commission on Human Rights. The commission also accused the police of cooperating with armed gangs who were armed with machetes and spears in the wake of the violence. The Kenyan President William Ruto, who came to power in 2022, promising rapid economic progress, faces deep resentment, and his high-handedness in dealing with the protesters has come in for a lot of criticism. Our next report gets you more details.
Reputed to be one of the most stable nations in East Africa, Kenya has borne witness to a turbulent recent history. weeks of anti-government protests have rocked the East African nation, following the death of a blogger in police custody last month. Tensions heightened when a policeman, in an ironic twist of fate, shot a civilian at close range during one of the demonstrations against police brutality. On the 25th of June, marking the first anniversary of a previous wave of deadly anti-government demonstrations, thousands of people across major towns took to the streets to voice anger and frustration with President William Ruto's government and to demand an end to police brutality. Condemning the nationwide protests, Kenya's under-fire government cracked down on protesters. At least 16 people were killed and more than 400 others were injured. The 7th of July marked the 35th anniversary of the historic Saba Saba, meaning 7-7 pro-democracy march. A momentous and much celebrated date when Kenyans rose up to demand a multi-party democracy in 1990, after years of rule by then-President Daniel Arap Moi. Commemorating the pivotal day in Kenyan history, marches were planned on Monday in 20 of Kenya's 47 counties, including the capital, Nairobi. But reportedly heavily armed police with military-grade weapons were deployed, who used masks and unmarked vehicles to conceal their identities. In a bid to deter protesters, the police erected roadblocks on all roads leading to the city center in the capital. Clashes erupted between police and protesters on the outskirts of the capital and in most of the 20 counties, leaving at least 31 people dead and over 100 wounded. Former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, who participated in the original 1990 Saba Saba rally, accused the government of using state security to stifle dissent and called for urgent police reforms.
I propose that the country urgently returns to the agenda of comprehensive police reforms, focusing on enhancing accountability, transparency, and improving the police-to-people relationship. Your rogue police force that shoots people with impunity. And this is a force that we inherited from the colonialists.
The Kenyan President, Ruto, however, was his usual defiant self. A couple of days after the Monday protests, he broke his silence over the recent anti-government protests, saying that he would not allow anarchy in the country disguised as peaceful demonstrations. Furthermore, he urged the police to shoot in the leg those looting and burning businesses.
Someone who goes out and burns other people's businesses, goes and sets other people's property on fire. Someone like that should be shot in the leg, taken to hospital, and taken to court. Yes, they should not kill such a person, but shoot those legs and break them, let them go to hospital, and then be arraigned in court.
A day after the protests, the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, had urged that the grievances leading to the protests are addressed. Civil society groups, too, have repeatedly called for restraint by the police during demonstrations. It is to be noted that President Ruto had assumed office in September 2022 after campaigning for the election as a man of the people. But his pledge at the time to work for Kenya's poor and downtrodden increasingly appears fallacious. Not only have his economic policies dented his image domestically and tarnished his standing abroad, but a country of 52 million people, a third of whom still languish in poverty, is clamoring for his ouster.
And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of World at War. And if you want to reach out to me with any comments, feedback or suggestions, feel free to do so on the ID that you're seeing on your screens. I'm your host Mohammed Saleh, and I'll see you again next week.